Welcome back to the Girly Girl Bookworm. So today I am filming 3 videos for you today. I think I'm going to upload all of them today too, just because I'm crazy. So I hope you watch them at your own pace. You could either binge watch them or do whatever you want, but just felt like I needed to do some filming. I am getting closer and closer to my due date. I am officially like a month away because today's August 9th. We're due September 9th. It's almost here. I feel like it's insane. Like, my fingers have finally swollen to the point where I can't wear my wedding ring anymore, which is like frustrating, but like means we're almost here. So I'm excited and I just felt like filming and I was finally in the mood and here I am. Enough rambling. I'm going to do the last 10 reads that I've read, and it's crazy because it feels like, looking at these, I'm like, this feels like I just finished these, but then at the same time, like, I feel like this has been forever, so I don't know. It's been a weird feeling. So I've got 10 books to share with you. Some good, some not so good, and let's just get right into it. So the first book that I finished was China Rich Girlfriend by Kevin Kwan. This is the second book to Crazy Rich Asians, and I have to say that I think I enjoyed this one a little bit more than Crazy Rich Asians. I think I knew more about what I was going into, which helped, and I knew a lot of the characters. We definitely got introduced to some new characters and some new problems, but I definitely felt like I had a better understanding of what was going on. I knew that there was going to be not subtitles, but like footnotes, and I knew that last time like that took me away from the story, so I kind of just like pick and chose like when I use the footnotes. So like if it was like they said something in a different language, I would reference back down, but like I didn't like let myself to get taken out of the story that way. So I think I actually enjoyed this one a little bit more than the first one, and I already own the third one, so I hope that I enjoy it, and I can't wait to read it and hopefully see the movies at some point. I was reading up on it, and it sounds like they had the actors and actresses, but they were contracted until 2020, so they can't start filming these until their contracts with these other movies are done. So it sounds like the movies are still on, which makes me excited. So this was a 4-star read for me, which was really exciting because I was really hesitant about picking this one up. Then I picked up The Last Mrs. Parrish by Constantine, and this was another book that I was really nervous about picking up because I had heard a whole ton of mixed reviews, but Shelby from Shelby Taggart, I'll leave her channel down below. I talk about her all the time. She really enjoys this book, so I was like, if she really enjoys it, maybe I'll give it a chance because sometimes we are on really good wavelengths about what we think about books. So I was like, I'm going to try it, and I finally picked it up. It also had the very summery cover, so I was like, now's the time. It takes place in Connecticut. It follows a woman named Amber, and she's kind of like this invisible. Nobody really sees her for who she is. So she wants to kind of like integrate herself into Daphne's life. Daphne is Daphne Parrish. She is very well off. Her husband is very well off. They have 2 kids. They seem to have like this perfect life, and Amber wants it. So Amber tries to start integrating herself into this life. And I have to say, it definitely is a slower paced book. Like, it's a mystery thriller, but it definitely doesn't come at like, oh my gosh, things are coming at every corner. But it definitely was a good read. I found it interesting. I found it engaging. I gave this book also 4 stars. So I'm glad that I gave it a chance. I know that she just came out, well, it's a sister duo. They just came out with another book too just recently, I feel like. So eventually I would like to pick that one up as well. Then I was in a nonfiction mood, and I asked you guys over on Instagram. If you don't follow me on Instagram, also link down below. Every now and then I leave polls like, tell me what to read. So I did that, and I ended up picking up A Mother's Reckoning, Living in the Aftermath of Tragedy by Sue Klebold. This is a nonfiction book written by the mother of one of the Columbine shooters, and I don't rate nonfiction typically. You'll see later why I say typically. So I didn't give this a star rating because memoirs I feel like are really tricky. I feel like they aren't like a character where I could be like, well, that character made some really stupid decisions, like, because it's not going to affect me, but like, this is a person's life. This is what they went through. And so like, I don't like judging that. So I didn't really give this a star rating. I have to say I enjoyed the first half. And then by the end, I just kind of was over it. It felt very repetitive by the end. I didn't necessarily love the message it was sending. It was hard, like, especially because I read this one and then I read another nonfiction, which you'll see later. And when I have to like compare the two, not that they're like on the same topic, but like this one just didn't do what the other one did for me. So unfortunately, I didn't love this one as much as everybody else did, but it definitely has its purpose. It has its point. I just didn't care for it as much as the rest of the world seems to. And then I decided this book was also like just like kind of on my brain. For a while, I think it's because she just came out with a new book this month. So I think that, well, end of July. So I think that's why it was kind of on my brain. And that is It's Always the Husband by Michelle Campbell. And she just wrote, this is her first book out of 3, I think. There's another book, and then The Stranger on the Beach or something like that that just came out. This follows 3 friends, and they meet in college, and we know in the beginning that something sinister is going on. Somebody gets like we think somebody's about to like jump off a cliff kind of thing, and we kind of go back and forth trying to figure out what led these characters to this point and like what's going on in this like current time frame. So these 3 friends, Kate, Aubrey, and Jenny, meet in college, and they kind of have a very interesting relationship, to say the least. They all come from kind of various backgrounds and various types of situations, and they kind of form this friendship, and something tragic happens when they are in college, and that kind of is like what's tying it to the future a little bit. It's hard to talk about this one without like completely spoiling it. But I found it to be okay. There was nothing super wrong with it. It just kind of was a thriller. Like, it was kind of slow. I didn't really like any of these characters. I mean, I don't think they're supposed to be likable, but they just kind of weren't the best. I feel like I've heard that she gets better since this book, so I just didn't see what everybody, like, I've seen a lot of people give this like 4 or 5 stars, but for some reason it just kind of ran that like middle of the road for me. So it wasn't bad, but I just feel like she could have done so much better with it. And the ending was like, what the heck? And then I went back to another nonfiction read, and that is What Made Maddie Run by Kate Fagan. Kate Fagan. She is an ESPN reporter, and Maddie was a soccer star turned track star, and she goes into her first year of college at Penn State, I think. Oh, of course, it doesn't say on the back. I think she ends up going to Penn State, or nope, University of Pennsylvania. So UPenn. And so she goes there on a track scholarship, and life is not what she expected it to be. College is way harder. Track is way harder. She's running cross country when she's never really run that before, and she's feeling the intense pressure of it. Maddie ends up committing suicide. Obviously, we know that from the get-go, and this was just really the inspection of looking at like what causes these tragedies to happen. Really looking into Maddie's story. Luckily, Kate Fagan had a really good relationship with Maddie's family, and to the point where they like were able to look at text messages and emails. And it was just crazy because to me, with this book, they kept saying like, how did the mother not know that her son was going to do this? How did this mother not know that he was depressed? How did this mother not know? This family knew, and tragedy still struck. So I found myself really agreeing with a lot of the points that Kate Fagan was making, especially as an educator. I feel like I definitely see the problems with society that Kate Fagan was pointing out. And I found myself having lots of conversations with my husband about it. Like, I would stop and I'd be like, oh my God, and I would have like an intense conversation with him over it, which is why it took me it took me like no time at all to read this, but it took me time because I kept stopping to have conversations about it. So I know I said I don't rate nonfiction, but I gave this one 5 stars because it was really well done. I really enjoyed it. I know Jen from Reading with Pugs ended up reading it based off my suggestion. She also gave it 5 stars. So definitely this was a book that I feel like needs to be read. It was definitely really well done. Then after that, I picked up Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas. I was not expecting this book to be as big as it is. Like, it doesn't look that big. It's 400 pages. This book is a new adult novel, I guess you could say. So, like, one of those, like, smutty reads. It follows a girl. She's 19. Her name is Jordan. She's in a relationship with this guy who is a jerk. And they end up having to move in with his father. And there ends up being a relationship between her and this man who's 20 years older than her. And I have to say, I enjoyed this. I gave it 4 stars. I don't think I loved it as much as everybody else loved it, but I have to say I really liked how Penelope Douglas dealt with this taboo, because I was kind of nervous going into it. I was like, she's going to cheat with his dad? Like, that's weird. But it kind of sets it up as like a potential like interest before she realizes that he's the father. So I really liked that, and they really don't get together until like it makes sense for them to get together. It took a long time for them to get together, so it's definitely like a slow burn. Like, they didn't instantly get together, which was kind of nice. But I definitely gave this book 4 stars. I thought it was really well done, and I would potentially want to pick up other books by Penelope Douglas. Did she write something else that I'm thinking of? Of course, because it's indie, it's not going to say. So I don't know. I can't remember if she wrote The Deal. No, that was somebody else. But I feel like I would definitely pick up something else by her, and I'm glad that I didn't steer away from this knowing that it was taboo-esque. But it definitely was handled in an appropriate way. After that, I picked up a hyped book, and that is My Lovely Wife by Samantha Downing, and I really don't get the hype of this book at all. It'll probably sit on my shelf for a little while just because I feel guilty getting rid of it right away when I paid $18 for it. But I gave this book 3 stars. I was led into believing that the story was about a husband and a wife where they kind of have hit a lull in their marriage, and he kind of finds women for his wife to kill to kind of spice up their relationship. But that's like, it's part of it, but it's not like completely the whole story. But it's hard to talk about it without giving main things away. I just felt like this was told from the husband's perspective. We never find out the husband's name. We know his like alias fake name that he uses when he finds these women, but we never know his real name. They, like I said, kill women, and one day it's kind of unveiled a little bit, and their stories and their secrets start to kind of unravel and crumble, and kind of figuring out like what's going to happen. Like, is this husband and wife going to get in trouble, or are they not going to get in trouble? Are they going to get caught? Are they not going to get caught? And I found it very dull, very dragged out. I didn't find it entertaining at all. None of these characters are likable. Things go down in this that just don't make much sense. The ending was a little, like, the last sentence just didn't feel like necessary, because it just like left me with like kind of confusion, and not a good kind of confusion. And I don't get the hype at all. I was talking to Shelby as I was reading this, and she kind of agreed, like, she doesn't understand the hype either, and I didn't find it that intriguing or great, which was disappointing. Then after that, I picked up an ebook. I just happened to be at a barbecue where everybody went swimming, and I wasn't going to go swimming, so I started an ebook while they were all down in the pool, and I was on the porch staying in the shade. And I started the 2, this is gonna glare funny. The 2 Lila Bennetts by Liz Fenton and Lisa Stink. I feel like I've read something by her before, come to think of it. I recognize that last name. I picked that up because it was free on Amazon for Prime members, and then I was like, just sitting there, I was like, wait a minute, I have that book, so I picked it up. And it's about Lila Bennett, and she is a defense attorney, and so she defends criminals and gets a lot of criminals off as innocent and things like that. So she just had this big case, and she should be excited and happy about it, and she's kind of not. And she's given a choice to make at some point, and it kind of parallel paths from there. If she makes one decision, she gets kidnapped and abducted, and the other one, she ends up going back home, but she still feels like she's being hunted, and things are coming out, and all these secrets and twists and turns. And I gave this book 4 stars. I feel like the hard thing that I have with parallel stories is they don't tend to have like the best of endings, because it's kind of left up like, well, what does she do? Like, what decision did she make? So I gave it 4 stars. It's definitely engaging and I really enjoyed it. I don't think I'm going to go, I originally was like, if I really, really enjoy this, I'm going to go buy it for my shelf. And I don't think I'm going to buy it for my shelf, but it definitely was a good read and I would recommend you pick it up if you can get it on the cheap like that. Then the next book after that, I read The Isle of the Lost, which is the Descendants novel by Melissa de la Cruz. This is the prequel, apparently, to the first movie. I'm trying to figure out this reading order, watch order. I've been wanting to get my hands on this for a while because if you didn't know, I'm a Disney freakaholic, apparently. So I've been wanting to read this because I definitely wanted to read it before I got into the movies. And I enjoyed this one. I gave this book 4 stars, but I feel like a lot of why I enjoyed it was all the nostalgia factor of having all of my favorite Disney villains and all my favorite Disney villain future families that we don't really know about, but like in one book, and seeing like the good people too. So like the good people are still in here too, not just the bad people. But I feel like I got into it a lot because of the nostalgia factor, and I don't know if it's necessarily like the best book, but like it could have been done really poorly. I've read another Disney book that had nostalgia and I didn't really like it. And I liked this one. So this follows the villains and the villains' children. They are at this point stuck on an island under a dome where there's no magic allowed because the good people have all sent them there. King Beast and Queen Belle run. I want to say it's like Alderaan. I couldn't pronounce like the name of where they actually live. Auradon. United Kingdom of Auradon is where all the good people live, and all the villains live on this island. And things ensue. They're trying to be villainous. There's 4 villain children that we're following right now. We're following Maleficent's daughter, the Evil Queen's daughter, Jafar's son, and Cruella de Vil's son. And there's a chance that magic is kind of making its way back onto this island, and the villains are starting to realize maybe there's more to life than just villainy, and the people on the good side, Belle and Beast's son, is kind of starting to realize, like, why are we so segregated? What's going on? So it's interesting. I liked it, and I haven't watched the movie yet, but I plan on continuing this if I then like the movie and want to keep going in that trajectory. And then the last book I finished was #Murder Funding by Gretchen McNeil. Both of these books you haven't seen in hauls yet because I got them technically in August. This was a pre-order. This was the sequel to #Murder Trending, and I liked #Murder Trending a lot. I gave it 4 stars, but like when I reflect back on it, like I'm always thinking about that book. So I feel like it probably should have been like a 5-star. I don't know. I don't remember why I gave it 4 stars, but I was really, really anticipating this one. Like I remember pre-ordering this one as soon as I could, and I have to say I was actually really let down by this book. This book follows a new slew of characters. It kind of still dabbles a little bit with the other characters, but not as much. They're not really, they have some of their own chapters, but like they're not really involved. Like they're involved, but not involved. So we're following this new cast of characters, and I don't really want to talk about specifically what it is because of the fact that it could be a spoiler, but they're in the first book, there's this game called, not game called, but it's like this Alcatraz 2.0 where people are sent there for villainous crimes that they've committed, and they are basically hunted and killed by these like social media predator people, and like people can follow on apps and things like that. And one of the like killers, they call them Paniacs, from the first book. This follows somebody who we are finding out she thinks that she is potentially one of the Paniac's daughters, so she's trying to figure out if that's true. Was my mother really a Paniac? Was she not a Paniac? Trying to figure it out. And so it just like took a completely different turn. The ending was just kind of, is this an ending? Is this not an ending? Did we have a point to this book? I'm not really sure. The characters were really not as well developed as they were in the last book. I found myself not caring. I found it hard to get into because of the fact that like these characters were people I didn't know, and it would kind of reference the last book, but not enough to like remind you all the events that happened in the last book. So unfortunately I didn't love it. I gave it 3.5 stars, and it got the extra 0.5 because of the fact that in the middle-ish area, there's a lot of action that reminded me a lot of the first book and why I liked the first book so much. So I gave it a 0.5 just to give it up a little bit of a boost because I was gonna round to 4, and I was like, but that's misleading because I definitely didn't think it was a 4-star read. So unfortunately, I didn't enjoy this. It's either going to be a classic middle book syndrome or a really weird ending to a duology. So we'll have to see. So those are the last 10 books I read. I'm sorry that this video was so long, but I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye, everybody.